Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am Anthony Gamer and I'm Mumford. Today we're going to be discussing games that are based on bands. Making a video game of a band was a great way for bands to get noticed, and it's a good form of publicity. Now today we're going to be discussing games that are more vintage in nature, and we're not going to be discussing any of the rock band games or Guitar Hero games, as those would need a whole separate episode just to themselves. We're going to focus mostly on bands and musicians that had games specifically made for them. First game we're going to talk about is Journey Escape. Now, many of you are familiar with the band Journey. They're a rock and roll band that have been around since the mid-70s and are still going strong today. In the early 80s, their most successful album was Journey Escape. And therefore, what's the name of that company again? Data Age. I almost said Data East. Yeah, wrong company. That's right. Data Age made a game based on the band and based on that album.
Alright, in this action game, the plot is explained here in the game's manual. You're on the road with Journey, one of the world's hottest rock groups. A spectacular performance has just ended. Now it's up to you to guide each Journey band member past hordes of love-crazed groupies, sneaky photographers, and shifty-eyed promoters to the safety of the Journey Escape vehicle in time to make the next concert. Your mighty manager and loyal roadies are there to help, but escape is up to you. Honestly, I like this game. It was very unique, especially for that time when a lot of Atari games were just, basically shooting type games, and I think it really was a good marketing move for the band themselves. Although some people aren't overly that crazy about it, I really truly enjoyed the game.
One thing I really like about Journey Escape is that it's a cool game to hack in case you wanted to make a game about your favorite band. I myself actually did make a hack of this game where I made it a game for one of my favorite bands, the New Monkeys. I will discuss that and show you that in a later episode. And one plucky hacker actually made a Kiss game out of that, and we will discuss that too in a later episode. I take it we're not going to talk about Kiss in this episode. No, because we're going to have an episode just dedicated to them. Oh, okay. You probably should have told people. Well, okay, I'm telling them now that there's not going to be any Kiss games in today's video. Oh, okay. The next year, another game was made for Journey, this time by Midway, and it was released in the arcade only.
Now about the gameplay of this game. This comes directly from Wikipedia. The object of Journey is to reunite the members of the band with their instruments, and singer Steve Perry with his microphone. Each instrument is located on a different planet, and the musician must first reach the instrument, then make it back to the band's ship without running into an obstacle. Each musician's stage presents a different challenge. Once all the instruments have been collected, the band performs a concert while the player controls Herbie, a bouncer whose job it is to prevent fans from rushing the stage. If a fan sneaks past the bouncer, the crowd steals the band's instrument and the player must reacquire the instruments again. Journey uses digitized photographs of each band member's head placed on a cartoon body, as well as looping excerpt from the band song Separate Ways World Apart, played on a cassette player inside the cabinet.
Although the game wasn't a commercial success, and honestly a lot of critics didn't like it, I'd have to say it has to have one of the coolest cabinets I've ever seen in my life. Oh yeah, that and Tron. It's hard to say which of those two are the best. Yeah, it's a pretty much close-up, except for the main difference is Tron is a totally awesome game, and this one's just kind of Yeah, but if you're a big fan of the band, you would play it just because it's got their name on it. Right, and Sekimatsu has got to be one of the best heavy metal bands to ever come out of Japan. And they do have a lot of competition, such as bands like Loudness, EZO, and more recently, Baby Metal. However, up until recent years, this band was pretty much unknown outside of Japan. And as they were a big act in Japan, it made sense that they were going to make a game based on them.
what you're looking at here is the actual special edition of the game that was released for the MSX. Originally, it was released in 1986 for the Famicom. However, a year later, they decided to re-release the game for the MSX with improved graphics, color, the controls were a little more fluid, and above all, it actually has some Sekimatsu music playing at certain points in the game. In this game, you take on the lord of their frontman, Lord Kaka, and you are trying to rescue the other members of your band that have been kidnapped. You pick up money, you have weapons, you pick up band instruments. It's pretty much your typical Nintendo-type platformer game. But if you are a fan of the band, you will enjoy it, for sure. And if you haven't heard Sekimatsu's music or seen one of their concert videos, I highly recommend it. My friend Ash Miller described them as this: they look like Kiss and they sound like Maiden.
Thompson Twins have to be one of the best new wave bands of the early 80s. They're on the same level as bands like Duran Duran. In my opinion, I thought they were just an amazing band. Oh yeah, especially that there was just 3 of them. Exactly, and the sound that they put out was just phenomenal. Believe it or not, they got their own game. It was released in 1984, only in the United Kingdom, and it was based on their album Into the Gap, and this game specifically was based on the song Dr. Doctor off of that album.
Alright, now this game is actually was released by Computer and Video Games Magazine as a promotional 7-inch flexi disc freebie along with its October 1984 issue. Alright, the game is based, like I said, on the Thompson Twins single Dr. Doctor. Now, it's interesting how it was made that they actually put the game on an album, like a really soft disc. Unfortunately, this format never did catch on, although the game itself was not really liked by some critics and whatever, but it is highly collectible to this day, especially finding one in good condition. Yeah, you said it. The game itself was actually programmed by David Shee for the ZX Spectrum version and Fred J. Preston for the Commodore 64 version. Now in this game, you take on the role of all 3 members of the Thompson Twins, Tom Bailey, Alana Curie, and Joe Leeway, and you're trying to gather ingredients for the concoction of the Doctor's potion. You start off at a beach location, and from there you travel along different areas, including a forest and a cavern, to search for ingredients for the Doctor's creation. When you collect all the ingredients and find the Doctor creates his potion, and the game ends. The best way I can describe this game myself is it reminds me a lot of Death in the Caribbean, except for this is kind of third-person perspective as opposed to first-person. Right, and you give small commands like open door, look in sand, dig up sand, light lantern, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of along the lines of Zork, I guess you could say as well, too, except for it actually has the pictures of the band.
Blues Brothers was probably one of the greatest musical movies I've ever seen in my life, and it still holds up to this day. And with that in mind, it made sense that they would make a video game of the characters Jake and Elwood Blues from that movie, and that's exactly what they did.
Now, this very first game is simply called The Blues Brothers. It was developed by Titus France and was released by that same company. It was available on MS-DOS, Amstrad CPC, Amiga, Commodore 64, and Atari ST. Now, in this game, you take on the role of 1 or 2 of the Blues Brothers, and you're trying to get to a concert because, again, like in the movie, the police are after them. So you have the ability to jump, pick up boxes, and throw them at enemies. Each level is a variation on the jumping theme, with characters finding a necessary attribute like a guitar somewhere in the level. And the 6th and final level ends on stage. They do actually have music from the movie in the game, so it's a pretty cool platformer game. and I highly recommend it for anyone who was a fan of the movie. And it was so nice they did it twice. Yep, what you're looking at here is the Blues Brothers Jukebox Adventure. This was released in 1993 for the Super NES, and the following year for the MS-DOS and Game Boy. This is a platformer game. Now in this one, what you're doing is you are trying to find these discs to throw at the enemies and find the jukebox at the end of each level. You can have two players playing simultaneously, which makes the game a whole lot of fun. It's too bad about your joypad, yeah, you know. Now, each version of the game actually has a different soundtrack, and they actually did license some of the songs from the movie. I'll tell you, as much fun as this game is, it is hard, especially the very first level. But once you get the hang of the first level, the other ones, believe it or not, are pretty simple. Or simpler, I should say. Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
Motley Crue was one of the best hair metal bands of all time. And in 1992, they got to expand from beyond having just awesome albums and great concerts to a really awesome video game. And that game was for the Sega Genesis, and it was called Crue Ball.
Okay, Crue Ball, also known as Heavy Metal Pinball, was developed by American studio New FX and published by Electronic Arts for the Sega Genesis. Alright, and of course, as I said, it is themed to the band Motley Crue. 3 songs of theirs are featured in the game: Dr. Feelgood, Livewire, and Home Sweet Home. The game was designed by Mark Weston Springer and programmed by Lou Hahn. If you're a Motley Crue fan, or if you're a big pinball fan, like you are, yeah, well, it's kind of a family tradition, you know. Oh yeah, you're going to love this game. It is a really super intense pinball game that you will just have hours and hours of fun playing.
Final game for today is Amadeus Revenge. This was a game that was made for the Commodore 64 computer by Chris Yates. What sets this game apart is it's not what you would think. It's not really a musical game, it's actually a shoot-'em-up game, so let's check it out.
Okay, now this game was developed by Fernando Zanini and was released in Europe on January 1st, 1988. Now, in this game, you take on the role of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, or Amadeus as they call him in the game, and your goal is to complete Mozart's famous Piano Concerto No. 25, K503, referred to in the game as simply Concerto in C. To do this, the player must navigate Amadeus across reams of sheet music while eliminating the conflicting notes produced by rival musicians such as Antonio Salieri. As a rival musician produces a conflicting note, it is reproduced within the game score at the appropriate tone. What did you think this game was going to be about when you heard about it? Honestly, I kind of pictured something along the lines of that one long-lost Activision game. Are you talking about Flocker? Yeah, for some reason I kind of pictured that, but this is nothing like that at all. Really, the game is really a lot of fun, and it got some really high reviews. Now, to have gotten this game back in the day, it actually was included on disc number 6 for subscribers that belonged to the Commodore 64 Club. And it was praised because it was I guess you could say a homebrew, for lack of a better term. But we really didn't call them back then because there were so many games that were created by people and then just, I guess you could say passed around. They did use what's called a shoot-'em-up construction kit to make this game. And honestly, it gets to points where it's really hard, where you get yourself caught in those crossfires of those music notes. And yeah, it's a fun game, and the challenge is always there, so. In our next episode, we're going to present rare and valuable games for the Magnavox Odyssey 2, as well as prototypes.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Classic Gamer 74. I really hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. Smash that like button, Share and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when I upload new episodes. Don't forget to follow me on my many social media platforms, and if you have a couple suggestions of games you'd like us to do, or a genre of games, or anything of that sort, don't forget to leave us a comment in the comment section below, and or contact me via the social media. I'm always open to hearing new ideas. Well, until next time, I am Anthony Gamer, and I'm Mumford, and we will see you all in the next episode. Until then, be strong, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and above all, take care of each other and be kind to each other. See you guys soon. Bye. Bye, everyone.